and this is something that really hits home to me. I've talked about the Catholic right, and as a Catholic and somebody who is on the right, this really offends me. If you don't know Rusty Reno, I just bought his book and I read his book this week, which is called the Return of the Strong Gods, I think, or maybe just the Strong Gods. And earlier, well, see, this is from the 18th. And so you can see he's apologizing for a tweet that he made on Tuesday, May 12th. So that's now about 2 weeks ago. But this has been sort of a rolling story. And when he said, "You're a coward if you wear a mask. Our veterans in World War II didn't wear masks," which is obviously ridiculous. It's a lie. Veteran soldiers wear gas masks all the time for obvious reasons. It's a tool. It's not because they're cowards, or maybe they're trying to hide their identity or whatever. There are reasons why somebody who is not a coward would wear a mask. So he put that out there, and he got absolutely hammered on Twitter, so badly, in fact, that he later deleted his Twitter account. But at the time that he made it, you had people like Austin Ruse of Crisis Magazine, another conservative Catholic magazine, and these are well-known publications, okay? Maybe not familiar to our audience, but in my world, this is really big. These are people I know read these magazines, and I find what Reno is doing to be absolutely shameful. The way they've politicized wearing masks, the way they've politicized their faith, and I believe there's an intersection between faith and politics, and I've written dozens of articles on that specific topic, on the intersection of faith and politics. But they are turning politics, in my opinion, into an idol if they think that this advances their mission as a religious organization to discourage people from wearing masks. Absolutely, in my opinion, disgusting. And he did apologize, but you can see it's like maybe half a paragraph, really. It's almost an incomplete thought. It says, "It was wrong for me to impugn the intentions and motives of others, for which I apologize." And that's it. He didn't explain, his thought process or how he got there. It's just sort of, "Gee, I'm sorry," just kind of kicking the dirt and making the minimum apology possible. But I think people who are very against masks need to do some real soul searching
Well,
about what it means. Yeah.
Again, I just want to emphasize the other side of this that I don't think is quite frankly getting any coverage at all, which is again the fact that we were lied to. And I'm not going to give up on that narrative because I was ahead on this issue and I brought it up. It was one of our main segments. I broke it down. I showed scientific studies that show that masks are effective. And this was at a time when officially the quote unquote medical community and scientific community said masks were not effective. Don't wear a mask. They said do not wear a mask. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, that is causing a lot of the anger and confusion because people feel like they cannot trust these medical authorities anymore. And in a very real way, you can't. You can't. That's the unfortunate thing. But also keep in mind here, we're talking about a novel virus, one that we are learning more and more about every day. And there are things that they're finding out. For instance, I saw an article recently, and I talked about this on the air, speculation, which, by the way, folks, the way scientific advancement happens is through speculation. You make a hypothesis based on observation or based on things you've seen, things you've read. And I told you that there was a possibility they were going to say that this surface transmission is not the major way that corona is being transmitted. And sure enough, there are scientists starting to say, yep, we really overestimated surface transmission. Now, again, it's a novel virus. The jury's still out, okay? I'm just saying that's already starting to happen. And again, we're going to be finding out we were lied to. In other words, the hand washing isn't as important as the mask. And that's the problem. That's the problem, is people were lied to because certain people decided to speak with authority when they had no authority because they didn't know what they were talking about. That's how a novel virus works. There is no expert on COVID-19 because it hasn't been around long enough for anyone to become an expert. Therefore, they are speculating based on things like influenza, things that work kind of in the same way. But that's the problem. And so then they try to speak with authority and tell you what to do, and it turns out they're wrong. And that's the problem. And then it erodes confidence in the entire system. But I did want to mention this since we were talking. I think it's a good segue because you were talking about.
Before we move off, I think that's a very good point you just made there. And so one thing I'd like to say is, yes, they were lying to us, and they were doing so out of selfishness, that they were worried that they would not have enough masks. If you remember the outrage over Richard Burr and other senators profiting off of the COVID crash, how much more? Yeah, okay, they made some money, and other people lost money, and sometimes people might commit suicide because they had they were financially ruined or whatever. But this mask scandal, to me, is even bigger. And if you are a conspiracy theorist, if you're worried about the essence of any conspiracy theory, is you are worried about corruption, about people who are elite, who have power, misusing that power, self-dealing, taking care of themselves, and hurting the little guy, right? That's the basic template of any conspiracy theory. This mask thing is exactly that. People in power worried that they were going to not have access to what they wanted or needed, and they were willing to hurt everybody else just out of pure, well, I think they thought it was for the greater good, but ultimately it was a very selfish action to lie to people and to treat us this way.
No, I don't know if I even believe that, to be honest with you. So I think it was a very selfish thing that they did, and it obviously, I think what we were trying to get at is it cost people lives. It cost lives. There's just no doubt about it to me that it costs lives. And I can't really say much more about that without starting to get emotional and losing my reason, which is not what I'm about. I think that that's the problem with the other side, is they get too irrational. We all get upset. We all get upset. We're all human beings. But that kind of stuff, it does really upset me.